Today's one of those days that I love and I hate. I'm harvesting my sweet potatoes today. We've been growing these here. So we've got 2 beds of sweet potatoes. They've been growing since about roughly May 1, maybe the last week of April. And we let them go 2 weeks, a little bit longer. We've done a number of different things this year. And so as we go through and harvest, we're looking for a couple things. We're looking at how they were affected, what we did and all that stuff, and how much more we were able to get. So what we were trying to change this year is size and quantity. So that's what we worked on. So let me get these vines pulled up out of here, and then I will go through and we will look and see what we have just from the surface, and then we'll do the harvest and we'll start to analyze it. I do this every year. I hate this video because it puts you on the spot. You either do really good or you do really bad. And this is the thing about Sandy Bottom Homestead, is we are transparent about everything we do. One last look of the beautiful creation we did this year before we get through. So yeah, I'm sad to see it go, but I'm excited for change in the garden, and everything's gonna be different now. These vines have gotten very long recently. We were able, I have to say, in about the past 2 weeks, which is 2 weeks longer than we would have grown, the vines have gained about 2 feet in length coming out. So it's been a big difference. Let me stop procrastinating and just get these vines cut. Okay, I'm just getting started here, and I found something that I think is really important for sweet potatoes. What I'm doing is I'm just going through and I'm cutting where the main plant was planted. But as I go through, I'm pulling it. And if you can see this vine, everywhere there's a node, it has rooted into the ground. So that's really important that you do that. Now, that can give you a sweet potato, and it may not, but it's really important because that just gives that plant more opportunity to feed, right? So what we did this year that was a little bit different, this is one of the few things. So we're in the phase now where we're like tweaking what we're doing. We've been growing sweet potatoes for about 5 or 6 years now. And so we're just tweaking, trying to see what works better. But one thing we did is, as they grew, instead of just letting them come right out of the bed like we had intended, we went ahead and wrapped them around in the bed and put them on top of the soil at first, and gave them a little bit more time to set those roots down before they came out into the garden. Now, they will set roots out here, but it won't be as easy. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible for them. So that's just the first thing that we did. I've got all the vines pulled out. I've got them laid out like this because I want to chop them up and put them in my compost. I really need some good solid compost material. And so this is gonna make a bulk of it for a while. So we're gonna do that. Now, something else we did different this year was, usually what I do is I plant on this side of the garden, right? Well, we added these beds in this year, and this side of the garden gets more sun than this side. Not a crazy amount, but it is a noticeable difference. So I wanted to see as well which side does a little bit better. They're both fed the same. They're on the same drip system. They get watered the same. They had the same soil put in the same year with the same amendments put in, so everything was the exact same. Now, I haven't dug any potatoes up yet, but so far, this is what I'm seeing. Please remember, as we do this, this means absolutely nothing, but just an initial observation here is, I don't see any potatoes on the surface here, right? And there was not as much foliage over here, but there was still a lot of foliage, obviously. The one thing before we go to the other bed too, I would like to check is, how wet is the soil? So sweet potatoes don't really like to have wet feet at all. So we want to make sure that it wasn't too wet. And this is just a good time for us to analyze how we were doing our watering. There's no potatoes on that bed. Well, I'm sure you can guess, since we're doing this, what's occurring over here. You can see here, we in fact have potatoes on the surface. Now, these potatoes came up as I was pulling them. It could very well be a function of me just yanking the potatoes pretty hard, or the vines pretty hard, and getting them to the surface. But it's always important to get an initial thought about what's going on and just initial observation. So, you know, we've got a handful of potatoes right here, which is a good sign. let's start digging. So the goal for potatoes this year was roughly about 50 pounds. 40 to 50 pounds is what we want. We want that each year. And so we are usually able to get 40 pounds. So this would be able to squeak out a little bit more. So we'll see what we get. And I mean, you can see right here, that's a really good sign. That makes me happy so far. Right here in this one spot where this plant was, we got a number of potatoes. And the good thing is, you don't really do anything for these potatoes throughout the year. So when you're pulling them, you know, because you haven't really touched the beds all, you haven't done any weeding, this is a really good time to do a complete weeding of this bed to prepare it for the next planting, which, by the way, will be planted tomorrow. All right, first bed is done. Let me get a basket and see what we've got going on here. But I'm gonna have to admit, first of all, that's a nasty ass bug on me, boy. Pretty happy so far. I can't complain. I don't know a weight, but I know an amount. And the reason why we use weight is just because it's an easy number, right? Really, the number of potatoes is what really matters if you think about it. So we've got enough so far to go through. Now, if the other bed produces like that, then it's gonna be amazing. But we did something a little bit different this year too, as far as feeding. Actually, we did something completely different this year as far as feeding, and part of it was on purpose, and another part of it was just because we didn't have a choice. If we can fill this basket up, it'd be about 40 to 50 pounds roughly. So we'll see. So a couple things we did differently about feeding this year. One, I came in really early and gave a solid feeding of bone meal. And I only did it once, but it seems to make a difference. I mean, if we look at the size of the potatoes here, I know it's kind of hard to see and tell, but they are fairly uniform. I mean, you can see, and this is what we were going for here. We wanted stuff about like this. So you can see we're getting quite a few that are going to fall into that range. Every once in a while, you'll get a really big one. You know, like this is fine. So we call these date night potatoes because 2 people can eat on them. And then we call these Thanksgiving potatoes because obviously, you know, we could feed our whole family on that. And I don't, you know, have a bunch of kids or anything. I've got one child, but you know, for the 3 of us to eat on one potato is pretty good. And then you get these, which are good for fingerlings, but this is what I use to make my sweet potato slips from the next year. So that's what every potato that was grown here came from something this size or smaller. So we got over half a basket on the first pull. Pretty good. So the other thing we did, which we didn't really have much of a choice against feeding, is we were using, this kind of comes in a 2-parter, and you'll see why in a second. We're using a liquid fertilizer this year, and typically when we grow, I use granular, liquid, well, that's basically it. But typically when we grow sweet potatoes, they're in their own separate bed. Something like these Brussels sprouts here where we can turn the water off and we don't feed them or anything like that. But this year, we were on this trellis, right? And the trellis had, it had peas on it, and then it had black-eyed beans on it, black-eyed peas on it, cowpeas, whatever you want to call them. And they were growing on it, so we had to keep watering it. With that, we had to keep fertilizing. And we fertilized, and it got just about every treatment. The only thing it didn't get is it didn't get an extra treatment of any extra of granular fertilizer. It only got the liquid. So I don't know if that helped or didn't. Now, as far as the liquid part goes, or the water, we won't know the outcome for this for a couple of weeks. But if you water sweet potatoes too much, they won't get that creamy texture when you cook them. They'll be basically real dry. I want to say mealy, but that doesn't really describe it. They'll just be a dry texture. So last year, we cut off the water and we watered the sweet potatoes like 4 or 5 times, you know, once they got established. This year, they got water basically every single time. So I think part of it too is because we put those vines back in, they were setting roots and they were soaking up more water as well, and that may have helped that situation. But we won't know the outcome for that for a while. And it also comes down to the way you cure your potatoes. So if you don't cure them long enough, the sugars don't readjust, and it can also help with that dryness. So that's why it's going to take a little bit of time. We won't eat our potatoes for another couple weeks, but let me do the next bed and we'll see. So this is the bed coming up that had the least amount of sun, which isn't a dramatic amount less, but it was less. Drinking green tea lately. If y'all drink green tea, let me know what you put in it that's not any kind of sweetener at all. You know, do you put cinnamon in it or anything like that? I'm trying to get it to where it's a little bit better. I'm used to drinking grass at this point, but it still tastes a little funny. So just let me know in the comments below. Get y'all started on here, let you see the first pull out of this bed. See what you think's gonna happen. So here's where a plant was. I am nervous about this because we are on the cusp of having a really good sweet potato year, and I just don't want to be let down. But at the same time, I don't mind because that's how you learn, right? So, not a big deal so far. Oh, no, no, up, got one. They're smaller so far, but that doesn't mean anything. It's not necessarily a bad thing. As much foliage is here, that can tell me a couple things. One, that can tell me that there was too much nitrogen. But the reason why I won't subscribe to that is because the other bed, which got fed the same, did not have any issues. So I'm not gonna say that it's something about the nitrogen, because the liquid fertilizer we were using was a 20-20-20, and the granular fertilizer we're doing is like it's either an 846 or an 864. So, damn, I just broke that potato. So I'm not really gonna be hung up on it, but I can tell you based on the very first initial pull out of this bed, it doesn't look as promising, but don't worry, let's pull them and see what comes out. All right, that one's done. You know, when the first fall breezes come, they feel so good. It's like, it's a gift from God. You know what I mean? It's like the first breezes you feel that aren't just like a hot fart. They're refreshing. So nice. Especially in this exact moment, I'm really feeling it. Okay, so second bed, less shade, or less sun, excuse me. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm seeing, as I step back and look, I'm actually seeing it pretty good. When I was in here actually doing it, I was like, yeah, these aren't as big. But maybe I was ignoring some of the other ones. You know, this size right here, believe it or not, is almost one of our favorites. I said this earlier this year, but we've learned that the amount of a sweet potato you're supposed to eat with each meal is very, very small. So we're able to stretch these a lot farther than you would think. Like, for instance, this potato right here, I know people that would eat this potato, and technically this could be 3 to 4 servings. You know, it seems hard to believe, but that's really how it is. So I'm not actually really upset about this at all. Obviously we want more, but it's got my mind thinking about this whole sweet potato growing situation, what I've been doing and what we may do next year. It's a little complicated moving, so the whole idea behind sweet potatoes is they grow out, it's not a big deal, but we can't keep growing them in the same beds year after year. They have to move. So I don't know if maybe I can flop between like these beds and let them grow out to here, or this bed and just let it do. I don't really know what I want to do next year. I'm gonna have to do some deep thinking about this and see what's gonna happen. It's interesting though, and it's a lot to think about, but you know, sweet potatoes are a really important crop for us. They get us through the winter. It's a staple, it's storable. You don't have to do anything to preserve it. All you gotta do is cure it appropriately. And as far as curing it goes, what I usually do is I put it in my garage with a fan, lay them out so they don't touch each other, and let them go. I might rotate them every couple days or something. I can't keep my hands off of them. I like looking at what we've done, what we've grown. But this year what I may do is I may set, because we're not supposed to get any rain for a long time, unfortunately. I may end up setting it out here on a table under a shade cloth of some sort so we can get maximum airflow throughout, and then just get a little bit higher humidity. And that will help those sugars kind of expand or change over whatever it does. I'm sure somebody in the comments can tell us. Either way, the sugars change and make it more flavorful and that nice creamy texture that you want. So we're gonna do that, but let me get these in the basket and we can get a final count. I'm thinking we may be over our goal, which is gonna be a good thing. All right, we met our goal. There you go. That's a good amount of sweet potatoes. And I grew Georgia Jet and Beauregard. To be totally honest, what I want to grow, and if anybody has a Carolina Ruby sweet potato, let me know. There's an address below. If you harvested some Carolina Ruby sweet potatoes and you send me a little one, I'd be so appreciative. I've looked for those for years and I can't find one anywhere. Might need to find a farmer and talk to him about it, but I would love to grow Carolina Ruby sweet potatoes. So as we sum this up, what made this a successful year in sweet potatoes? So first and foremost, what you're not going to want to hear is this area is known to grow sweet potatoes, which is why we've gravitated to growing them so much. Our weather is right, our soil is right, just the acidity in the soil is good, and so that's one reason why we gravitated to it. So we have a leg up, right? Versus us growing a cabbage in summertime. You know what I mean? Like, that's not gonna happen. So that helps for sure. The thing is, even though this side of the garden is shadier, as you move forward, it gets more light up here. So the amount of sunlight absolutely helped. As far as the size of the potatoes, bone meal, I gave it 1 feeding of bone meal. Next time I'm gonna give it 2. And then the other thing is those regular feedings helped a lot too. I was a little worried about it, but I did not get an excessive amount of foliage. So I got a good amount of potatoes. They were the right size, all that. So the fertilization really made a big difference. The way we did the fertilization, this is the schedule we use. We use a pre-planting granular fertilizer at the time of planting. And then within like a week or something, we put bone meal in, just sprinkled it on top. We grew it. And then we probably once a month, we came through and fed with the liquid fertilizer as well. And that was it. Now, the other thing we did that I think really did make the difference is we rooted those plants along the beds. So, you know, if this was a plant and as it got bigger, it would grow out like this, and we would take it and do like that. And I may put a pat of dirt on it or something. Obviously this is a bad example. Do this one. So it'd be like that. And then we would come through, put it in just like that maybe, and this was just at first, and I think that really helped because once this got stuck down, then the rest of them would grow down as well. It's more contact points for roots and nutrients, so I'll take it. I'm glad this is over. It's always nerve-wracking, but I believe in full transparency in my garden. My garden is not perfect. It is not maintained perfectly and manicured, and I don't want it that way. But more importantly, I feel that this garden represents all gardeners, and this is what an average garden would look like. So how are your sweet potatoes doing this year? Let us know in the comments below.